Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back to the show, my good friend. It occurred to me just as I hit the record button that you and I never officially agreed to what we were going to do this episode.
Right, of course, yeah. I said TCU season debrief, and you were like, what are you even talking about? And I was like, well, think about it. And you said, no, absolutely not. So where did we land?
I hope you came prepared to talk about the CFP National Championship game between Miami and Indiana. Because that's what I did.
Yeah.
I can't speak for you.
It is. We've previewed national championship games each year we've done this show. We've done it in different ways. I think we're going to be more direct and hopefully as thorough as our most thorough shows that we've done in previewing these monumental games. This is the first time, I believe, in the history of the Solid Verbal that we're previewing either one of these teams in this situation. Yes? We have not previewed Miami in a national championship game. We have not previewed Indiana in a national championship game situation. We have not
even close.
We have not previewed either of these head coaches in a national championship situation as head coaches. And so this feels very new and novel and fresh and clean. It's great.
Please hit follow or subscribe if you have yet to do so. This is not the end for us. We, of course, have the recap show that we're going to do immediately in the shadow of the national championship game after it goes down on Monday evening. We will, of course, continue all throughout the offseason. 2 episodes per week. That has been our plan of attack since God knows when.
Yes.
So keep it right here. We will do our part after the season to keep you up to speed on everything going on in and around the world of college football. But for the time being, yes, we have a very big game to discuss. The other point that I would like to make here before we dive in, we do have Bowl Bingo going on. We've had 3 weeks of Bowl Bingo. It is free for everybody to play. All you need to do is go on out to playbowlbingo.com. If you sign up as a free member of our Patreon, you don't got to pay. You can if you want, but you don't have to. If you want to play the game, all you got to do is pick 6 items from a big old list of 30. 6 props that you think may go down in this national championship game with a tiebreaker, and then close things out, give a prize to the winner. Okay?
That's pretty
very
awesome.
simple. You pick 6 things, very straightforward. Couldn't ask for anything more simple. People have been having a lot of fun with it so far this season as they did last. So playbowlbingo.com is where you can go if you want to get in on the action and have a little bit more to root for on Monday night.
Agree.
Shall we dive in, Dan?
I think so.
Let's do it one more time this season, my good friend.
Dan, Ty, help. I need picks of the week.
It is the college football playoff national championship game. They are playing it in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. More to come on that in just a moment. It is your number 1 seed, Indiana Hoosiers at 15-0. An 8.5 point favorite at time of recording, squaring off against the 10th seeded Miami Hurricanes, who come into this one with a mark of 13-2. Your over-under again at time of recording, 47.5 points.
Yes.
I have some fun facts for you, Dan.
Oh, so in essence, you're saying
I got something to say.
I'm ready.
I do, actually. I
ready.
have a couple interesting nuggets that I think you might appreciate.
Okay.
Some maybe that you knew, others maybe that you didn't.
I'm ready.
First and foremost, Indiana has never won a national championship. Never won a national championship. They have been playing football for over 125 years. They only have 3 conference championships to their name in football, including the one that they won this season. They are also vying to become the first team ever to finish 16-0 in a single season at the FBS level. And that, of course, is because they've expanded the playoff field. And there are more games now. And I think everybody out there can put 2 and 2 together. But just as a point of historical context, interesting thing to note.
Yeah.
On the Miami side, their last title was 2001. The last time they played for a national championship was actually in the year of our Lord 2003 for the 2002 season. They lost that game in the Fiesta Bowl, then played in Sun Devil Stadium in double overtime to Ohio State. The final score of that one was 31-24. And we have talked about that game a whole multitude of times now over the course of this show, right? This show, I'm sure we'll bring it up 1,000 more times, but that was a pivotal game, a watershed game in our history as college football fans. It meant a lot to us both.
Agree.
Also, here's one for you. Miami is playing this game in their home stadium, but technically on paper, they are designated as the road team. So I believe they will be wearing their road uniforms in this game.
Okay. That's cool. Interesting. Different.
It is different. Fernando Mendoza attended the same high school, Christopher Columbus High School, as Mario Cristobal. And Mario Cristobal's classmate and teammate was Fernando Mendoza's father.
Saw
so
that.
There's a bit of connective tissue there.
Yep.
And last but certainly not least, right now, this figures to be the most expensive national championship game ticket ever. So for context, last year between Ohio State and Notre Dame, the get-in price was a little over $1,800 for the cheapest ticket, which, where's my sound?
Wow, that's a lot of
That is a lot of potatoes.
Yeah.
Thus far, I checked StubHub late last night. The cheapest ticket that I could find is around $3,200.
Jeez.
I don't know if that's going to go down. My hunch is even if it does, it won't dip below $1,800, dog. So if you're looking to get in, again.
Wow, that's a lot.
Did you see, by the way, did you see Connor Stallions weighing in with Mark Cuban about that?
I did, and I didn't really understand what the subtext was. I didn't understand why people were making a big deal of that.
Oh, it was just funny that, Connor Stallions is around and weighing in and has takes. He was just talking about how there's sort of finite demand usually because there are two fan bases who don't live in the city that's hosting the national championship, but now there is much more interest locally because of a home team playing in the national championship game. So tickets likely won't drop as dramatically as kickoff nears day of. And so you won't see, $3,200 now, but suddenly people are getting in for $750, 5-10 minutes before kickoff. So it does, to your point, ring true that it's going to be a pricey ticket.
If you were a fan of one of these teams, and you know that the two of us have confronted this very issue before in the past, what would be the maximum amount of U.S. dollars that you would pay to get in?
I wouldn't pay four figures to go to a sporting event. I just wouldn't.
Well, I know that. I figured as much. But
so
how much?
$999. No,
how much would you be willing to spend?
It also would depend on opponent. It would also depend on place. Do I want to go to this place? The whole shebang. I think I would. I don't know, $800-900 to go to a huge Oregon national championship, especially because Oregon hasn't won ever, which nobody ever reminds Oregon fans of. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Nobody's ever made the joke that 150 uniform combinations, 0 titles. Nailed it again, Chad. Yeah, if your team has never won a national championship, like Indiana, and it is a destination place, as Miami is, especially in wintertime if you're coming from the Midwest, and they're playing against a team that, as an Indiana fan, you'd love to see them play against and beat, which I'm sure, Miami as being I guess 21st century power is not a lie. It's just been a minute, that this is an enticing situation. So I understand why people are going crazy and snapping up tickets because it's just a situation they've never experienced. But yeah, I'm in that. Yeah, I'd pay $800-900, but I can't justify that when I don't know, kids need shoes, right? Just stuff like that. I don't know. Kids need groceries.
All right. Well, if you're going to this game, reach out, solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know what you paid to get in. No judgment here. Look,
do you have a number?
I was close to paying $900 for that Notre Dame Alabama game.
Yeah.
And it would have been last row of the stadium. And I didn't want to do it at the time because, A, I think we both thought they were going to get creamed, and they did.
Right.
And then B, it was sort of a bummer going without you. I don't know. I would have felt weird doing that. So
to be clear, I have done that.
I know
went
you
with
did
Spencer
that to
Hall
me.
To the Oregon Ohio State National Championship.
I know.
Yeah.
But it was, I was expecting in that game that it was going to be something of a shellacking.
Sure.
And so I at least wanted to have some company with me if I was going to spend that kind of cabbage to watch the game.
Right. Agreed.
So it wasn't exactly the same, but if you're going, again, no judgment. Solidverbal@gmail.com. We're not going to use your name or anything, but let us know what you paid to get in. I'm curious.
That's,
curious
by the
to
way,
know what you got them for.
That's sort of central to one of my life theses. Is that a word? Theses? Thesis is?
It's very close to
Thesi?
something else, but go ahead.
Whatever. What are you, feces? Is that what you're going to say it was close to?
You're
words,
allowed
not to
mine.
say that. That's
Your
not
words, not mine. Make your point.
It's not the what, but it's the with whom, right? That it's great going to a huge game, but it's even better, no matter the outcome, that you're with somebody you want to be with. And so I get it from your perspective. Going solo to a national championship game when your team is playing that sort of defeats the purpose of the culture of college football in general. So, yeah, I get it.
I will say that I did put in for World Cup tickets, and in that case, especially for the U.S. games, I'm prepared to spend more money on tickets than I ever have before.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Oh, man. But you'd be going with somebody you like, right?
I'd be going with friends, and the good news for my pocketbook is that I'm not going to win them because there's 20 million applications. But this is a football show, the other kind of football show.
American
Dan,
football.
I have a couple questions about this game before we dive into our keys and the case for each team and so on and so forth.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that both teams in this matchup realistically can win the game?
Yes. Definitely.
I think I feel the same.
How can you look at these teams and who they've beaten recently and think otherwise? That you think there's no way Indiana can beat Miami in Miami, or you think there's no way that Miami can beat Indiana? These are both excellent teams. This is a national championship game. They're both prepared. They're both not dealing with distractions. They both haven't had a catastrophic injury to a quarterback, or, obviously Indiana's lost a big defensive lineman, but, Miami's dealing with, a beat up team, as everybody is at this point in the season. So, yes, I think that Miami was able to beat Ohio State, that Indiana was able to beat, Ohio State, Alabama, and Oregon, and the way that they sort of went through their schedule for the most part, the case for either of these teams is not difficult to make.
It's not difficult. I think it's a little bit of a narrower path for Miami, and we can get into that.
Sure.
But I tend to agree. Both teams, I think, can absolutely win this game. Question number 2. What would be the most shocking outcome for you?
A Miami blowout. Miami winning this game 38-13.
I have a Miami blowout as well.
Yeah. Look, that's not the way that they've won a lot of their games, that even when they've gone up on teams have come back. And even if those weren't fully competitive 4-quarter games, Miami distancing themselves from excellent teams has not necessarily been reality this season.
No.
And look, depending on, what you think of Pitt or something like that, but no, Miami in the playoff has not distanced themselves from teams, which is fine. You just want to win. But that would essentially, to me, take an Indiana program and team that has not been mistake prone, that has been eat off the floor clean, that has been precise, that has not beaten itself, doing all of the things that they've avoided all season long. So it would be so out of character for Miami to win, taking advantage of mistakes and just laying it on Indiana.
Yeah, I think the only way this goes down is if it's Alberto Mendoza playing quarterback for Indiana. If something happens to Fernando, no one's rooting for that. But,
but
I can't bend my mind into the pretzel
no
needed to get to 38-3 Miami.
Right.
So I tend to agree. Here's question 3, though. What would be the funniest outcome?
The funniest outcome?
Funniest outcome. Not shocking. Maybe shocking because it's funny, but funniest outcome.
The darkest possible humor outcome of this game would be Miami going up comfortably and the whole place going crazy.
I have the same thing written.
They're up 28-7 deep in the third quarter, something like that. And maybe it's a special teams play. Maybe it's a tipped pass, pick six. And I'm saying this as if Miami going up comfortably in this game is crazy improbable. It's not crazy improbable. This is college football. we have results and we have years upon years of sample size to say that favored teams can be comfortably down. That they are up 28-7 and Indiana comes back and wins this late and leaves the stadium completely shell-shocked. I guess.
And I would say, as an addendum, not because of a big special teams play or because of a pick six or anything like that.
Right.
I think the funniest possible outcome, as you said, Miami going up comfortably, but then blowing a lead because they go into like a super conservative shell or they mismanage the clock, or some of the criticism that rightfully has been thrown at Cristobal over the years, some of that stuff kind of coming back and costing them the national championship game at home.
Right.
Funniest from a content standpoint, obviously not from Miami standpoint.
Right.
But I think for those of us who don't necessarily have a dog in the fight, that would make for the funniest conversation.
Honestly, my 1B in terms of the funniest possible thing is actually the Miami blowout of Indiana. Because leading up to this game, it's nothing but, where did Kurt Signetti come from? How does he do it? How does he know who has the most flexible ankles, right? Is this the new model? How did nobody else see this coming? And then to absolutely get shellacked after all of that love, that's kind of funny too. That, he is being treated like a god, right? That we have all been just like relegating to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, and James Madison, and this god has been lurking amongst us, right? He's the Joan Osborne of this situation. Isn't that Joan Osborne? What if God were one of us?
God was. Yeah.
Yeah. So him now playing on coaching a team on the biggest possible stage with the Heisman winner, and then getting just the bejesus beaten out of them. That'd be kind of funny too. I don't know.
There are people around here talking like Signetti should take the Steelers job now that it's open.
Yeah. Yeah. Why even coach this game when you could be preparing your speech for the Football Hall of Fame, right?
Okay.
So there's a certain level of that as well. It's all pain for me, to be clear, as an Oregon fan. All of this conversation, this word cloud that we're building, Ty, it's all pain for me. So I hope the Indiana fans and Miami fans are equally giggled and tickled and everything at me having to experience, on one side, the coach who decided that Oregon wasn't for him, and then on the other side, a team who has beaten Oregon down twice in the last 3 months.
See, if I'm an Oregon fan, though, I'm rooting for Indiana. You can't root for Cristobal because he left you high and dry, but you can root for Indiana because if you're going to lose to anybody,
right? Well,
literally the only team, 2 losses, 1 team for Oregon this year was against Indiana.
I know.
So I had an old baseball coach who would tell me there's only 1 team happy at the end of the year.
Of course.
Wouldn't you rather lose to that team knowing that you went toe-to-toe with them twice? Maybe you weren't good enough, but at least it sort of validates losing to them as not being losing to a cream puff or something.
Totally. And look, when you look at like who Danning has lost to at Oregon these past 2, 3, 4 years.
Are we calling him Danning now? Is that
Dan? I just murmured it.
Okay.
Dan Lanning.
I kind of like that. Anyway.
It's Washington who's in the national championship twice that season. It's Indiana this year. It's Ohio State last season, right? That like Oregon is this world-class loser. They only lose to the best. And that's not great either as an Oregon fan. Like as impressive as it is that you don't lose dumb games. And I know like this is insane that I'm making this about Oregon when they're not playing in this game. But I'm just giving you my perspective as a co-host of this show. I would take Indiana from a pure Oregon perspective. As a co-host of the Solid Verbal, I just want to watch great football.
All right, I got a couple more.
Okay.
What worries you the most for Indiana?
What worries me the most for Indiana is much more circumstantial than based in reality of on-field play. If I were worried about Indiana, if I were an Indiana fan and I was starting to get worried about this game, it's one, a national championship stage is even bigger than the stages that they've been on in the Rose Bowl and the Peach Bowl. And 2, their wins in the playoff this year came against teams that are or were in some degree of turmoil. That, Oregon with injuries and coordinators leaving, and the offense sort of sputtering later on in the season for Oregon at times. You know, the offense wasn't great against Texas Tech, and it was a team that they had already beaten and felt confident against. And Alabama's obviously, to whatever degree you feel like they're in turmoil with, you know, a bunch of transfers leaving, the way that they finished their season, losing to Georgia like handily in the SEC championship game, not performing well against teams like Auburn, LSU, whoever. And, you know, the quarterback leaving, which, by the way, the sidebar here of Ty Simpson leaving for the NFL, getting like $6.5 million offers and saying like, I'm too proud an Alabama captain to go anywhere else. Like, it wasn't that good for Alabama this year.
Enjoy the Jets, my friend.
Right. I would be a little bit worried that their path has been paved with kind of fractured programs at the moment. Okay. Beating Oregon is still excellent. I'm not taking away anything.
They're all good wins, but
they're all terrific wins, and they beat them down. Right? It's not. We're not saying they beat them 28-14. They beat these teams down. They suffocated them. They were boa constrictors. They castrated these teams. Take whatever verb you want. So that would be a worry that Miami is in a more stable place, and the game is a home game for Miami. Okay. And so you're just talking about the emotion of this game. You're talking about the stability of opponent, and you're talking about maybe a little bit of the math coming back to bite Indiana, that like they never lose fumbles, they never are penalized, whatever. And like just the universe saying like, we're going to even this out a little bit here with a dumb mistake that you feel like you're immune to. And everybody's talking up, Indiana doesn't make mistakes, Indiana doesn't beat themselves. And you're just like, sometimes the universe evens out a little bit, and it's just football and the ball bounces the wrong way on a fumble. That would be the more circumstantial, like college football gods worry. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those are really, really good points. For me, it's very simple, and I promise I will talk more about this. I want to get through these questions here.
Yeah.
For me, if Indiana can't run, that's a problem.
Okay.
If Indiana can't run against Miami, I think that is an indicator that there are some other problem areas that could come back to bite their offense in this game. So I just jotted down simply if they can't run.
Yeah, great run defense this season. Yeah.
I will unpack that more. Let's flip it around. What worries you the most for Miami? Let me answer first.
Yeah.
I'm worried about Miami having to play from behind in this game.
Okay.
Because I think the template that I will speak to here in just a little bit is one where they play bully ball like we've seen them play in the playoff. It's been very effective for them over the course of the last few games. But that is not to say that falling behind by a touchdown or even 10 points is the end of the world. But if they get down like 14 to 17 points, let's say early in the third quarter, and suddenly they've got to air it out, they can't lead on that ground attack. Indiana can do what it does really well, which is disguise coverages and find ways to bring pressure against Carson Beck. That situation to me seems like it would be a really bad deal for Miami. So them playing from behind, again, not necessarily a blowout, but playing 2-3 scores behind, I think is a real problem for the Canes.
I agree. It's what Indiana does so well is they dictate the terms of the fight. And so it's also what Miami does very, very well, that they dictate that this is going to be a slog, that this is going to be a rock fight, that they're going to get, when you think that they're just going to keep going for 3 and 4 yards, they figure out something creative to do with Malachi Toney or something. So yes, Indiana succeeding in determining the terms of this, whether it's forcing Miami to throw a lot more than they'd like. And maybe I think if you're Miami, it's which version of Miami discipline do we get here? And so the fear if you're Miami, it's not just that like you're behind and you have to throw and you have to, run tempo, which they don't do. They're a very not slow, but deliberate team in the way that they manage their offense. It's playing behind the sticks too often, right? That they get a nice Mark Fletcher 5-yard run on first down and then a false start, then a personal foul or something like that. We saw the penalties almost compound against Ole Miss late in that game. And again, once again, we talked about, the idea that Miami had a moment where it seemed like they were unraveling. So if Miami is taking itself out of position too often and surrendering drives in a game, which by the way, both of these teams are quite deliberate in terms of tempo. So if I'm Miami and I absolutely waste a 7-minute drive at some point, especially in the first half, that it's 7 minutes, the Canes are churning and they're getting first downs, and then a penalty fully takes them out of that drive and it ends with a missed field goal or a punt or something like that. Just the math with how they like to play does not add up because the drives are going to be limited in this one. So I'd be terrified if Miami mounts a long drive that nets them nothing at some point in the first half, because wasting that much time without points, especially 6, can be quite brutal for how Miami likes to play, which is just wearing teams down over the course of 4 quarters.
Final 2 questions, okay?
Yeah.
What would it mean if Miami wins this game?
Sure. If Miami wins this game, it is 100% proof of concept of Mario Cristobal's decision and excellence and vision for this Miami program. You get the really heartwarming narrative of his homecoming, playing for Miami, coming back home, winning this game. Can tell every single little weenie like myself who doubted this move to shove it. And it's nothing but incredible vibes for Miami moving forward. Now, with that now becomes the expectations of Miami, which have always been get back to previous versions of Miami, which Mario Cristobal has been very, very careful to sort of turn away from. Saying we have no interest in going back. Our eyes are only on the future, which I think is a very savvy way to look at
Very
this.
Mark McGuire, right?
Because
I'm here to talk about the past. We want to talk about the future.
But it's an impossible ask to say get the U back to where they were in the early 90s or early 2000s, because we don't exist in that universe. So Mario Cristobal very smartly says it's an impossible ask and it's an impossible journey to get to that point once again, just because it's 2026 and it's you're not living in reality if you want that. But if the idea and the expectation from Miami fans is national relevance, always be competing for national championships, and then you win a national championship, then Mario Cristobal's seat doesn't become hotter, but the throne becomes more diamond studded. And with that, you're now asking him, okay, you need to compete for national championships every season, and you better give us a good reason why we're not this year if we're not, right? That now the expectations are so much hotter for Miami moving forward, good and bad.
Yeah. And I would add to that, on a more macro level, it's a very big deal for the ACC. It's a very big deal,
Huge.
even for the Big 12 by extension.
Yeah.
Because so much of the conversation in the playoff era has been about what the SEC and the Big Ten want to do. We're hearing it now, by the way.
Sure.
As they talk about what the next version of this playoff is going to look like. It's all about the SEC and the Big Ten. Can Tony Petitti, can Greg Sankey come to some sort of accord and move a 16-team thing forward? And I'm already tired of that. But all too often in this conversation, the ACC and conferences like the Big 12, by extension, are sort of on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't even a guarantee that Miami was going to get into this field.
Right.
We had no idea. And it really came down to the very final version of the playoff rankings before we found out that was in fact the case. And we could talk till we're blue in the face about the process and how it's weird and it wasn't clearly communicated and the Tuesday night shows are ridiculous. And all of that stuff is still true. But it doesn't invalidate what Miami did this season. It doesn't invalidate Miami's case for being there. They did beat Notre Dame, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think they very much had a stake to be in this thing, a claim to be in this thing. And the fact that they have made it this far is not only a testament to them, but also to some extent, maybe the process that got them in. And I would say on a much bigger level, the ACC as a whole, right? If you have any team that makes it out of your conference and ends up winning the national championship, that bodes well for that conference moving forward. So this would be a huge feather in the cap of the ACC if they were able to go on and win this thing.
Especially since they didn't beat a Big 12 team. They didn't beat lowly ranked Cinderella stories or a G5 team in this playoff, right? They beat a Texas A&M team from the SEC who won a ton of games. Maybe ignore who Texas A&M actually beat. But they went to Texas A&M and won that game, a very difficult place to win.
In crazy windy and weather conditions. Yeah.
They went to a team that was number 1 in the country for like 14 weeks this year. They didn't go to them, but they beat them on a neutral field in Ohio State and beat them by double digits. Not a small deal for Miami in the ACC. And then beat the SEC's alpha, the last man standing, Ole Miss, in their semifinal matchup. And they've won games exactly how, if you're to believe a game is this like humanized, sentient, whatever, like how the game dictated, right? They took what the game asked of them, whether it was from Ohio State in absorbing Jeremiah Smith, but not letting them score 30 in the process, getting the stops when they needed the stops, and getting those like crucial third downs when they needed those crucial third downs. They won the games how the games dictated they win. And it was more scoring needed against Ole Miss. They scored. They made it work. They made it happen. They limited mistakes. The penalties weren't great against Ole Miss. Maybe that's something we can talk about more. But that for the ACC to run through a Big Ten power in 2 SEC games on the way to not just appearing in this game, but winning this game, it's a huge deal. Yeah.
Be a very big deal. Okay, let's flip it around. Indiana.
Yeah.
Weirdly to me, we've talked a lot more about what it would mean if Indiana wins. We've done that already. We've been having that conversation throughout the playoffs. We've been having that conversation, frankly, since Indiana made it last year.
Yeah.
So the Miami side of this, albeit they're at home, there's a lot of history with them coming back home. It's been 25 years, all this stuff. Even though all of that remains unchanged, I still feel like that aspect of this has been undercovered as compared to the Indiana story, which admittedly is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's improbable. It's crazy. It's like a million different adjectives wrapped into one.
Yeah.
So what's it mean if Indiana does go on to win this thing, Dan?
It's the most improbable national champion of the modern era, if not ever. And Indiana is a product of the times, which every national champion is, but these are, different times as it relates to the, whatever 20 years of the modern era before this. It's a more difficult conference to win for Indiana, but it's easier to build a competitive roster. Indiana did not build a competitive roster. Indiana built a roster of killers, and they killed immediately. And so that's never been done ever in this timetable. So for Indiana, everything is, we've all been through this conversation a million times, right? The losingest program ever, blah, blah, blah. They've an afterthought. There are no football fans there. It's a traditional basketball school. They're not even the premier school in their state with regard to football. For them to come not just out of the shadows, but to come out of the desert of this sport, to do this is as improbable as it gets. Like, we could have had a conversation 5 years ago, and if we were to draft teams that seem the most improbable to build a national championship contender, given where they are and where they've been and what the sport is, Indiana has unbelievable wingspan and leaps out of the gym, right? They're like an obvious draft pick of power conference teams who you're like, I can't even squint and see a path.
No.
With the coaches that they've hired,
listen,
with the money they haven't spent. Yeah, everything.
It wasn't all that long ago that we were looking at like a 6-6 or 7-5 season with, Tom Allen, or Kevin Wilson, if you want to go back to like the mid 2010s. And, we looked at that as an enormous success for Indiana football.
Right.
That was by far exceeding what expectations were in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody had 15-0 in the bingo card. Nobody.
No.
And I think we acknowledged at the start of the year that we thought Indiana would be better, but the schedule was harder. And, I'm not going to be too critical of our preseason commentary on Indiana because nobody had this.
Right.
Even Indiana fans didn't have this. This has certainly been a charmed season with the right players and the right coach at the right time. And they have been, as you said, killers. What would this mean for Indiana? We tend to talk about everything in a college football sense here, but I did a radio hit this past weekend with our friend Steve Zabin down in D.C.
Yeah.
And Zabe asked the question, exactly this. What would it mean if Indiana wins? And he went on to say, in my lifetime as a sports fan, does this not rank as one of the best sports stories ever?
I think so.
Does it not rank? Is it not at least in that conversation? And it had never been presented to me in such terms, but I've been thinking about that since I went on the radio with them. And I think it tracks. I mean, it's really up there. And so what does this mean in a college football sense, given what Indiana has done, as he said, the timetable so quickly, building it in this capacity with the new coach and winning it and going from rags to riches so quickly? Like, in a college football sense, that is proof of concept for 1,000 different things, certainly related to the portal and NIL and Curt Cignetti. But just in a broader sports conversation, we got to consider this at least as one of the great stories we have seen in our lifetimes. And I don't know where it ranks. We can have that conversation maybe in the offseason if it comes to it. But for Curt Cignetti to get Indiana here so quickly, you couldn't even have bet on this 5 years ago. You wouldn't even get odds if you tried to bet on this. That's how improbable it felt.
There's something about. I'm thinking about like the Indiana teams of yore and the conversations, right? They're the like LEO, love everyone, Tom Allen teams. Like the majority of the time that we would talk about Indiana games, hold it against us or don't, I don't know. It's just like, I like this one guy. Yeah. I like Ty Freifogel, right?
What a pull.
I pulled that like 4 days ago. It was the two names that I was like, who are the guys that we would talk about? We were like, they're not good. This guy's got like kind of fun. This guy's got some spirit. The other one was Whop Phillier because we don't talk.
Wow.
Yeah. WHOP.
I thought maybe you were going to go Cody Latimer. That was another one that comes to mind.
No, but like, look, this is an Indiana program where like they had a decent quarterback in Peyton Ramsey. And as he's finishing out his career at Indiana, he's like, you know what? I want to give myself one real shot. I'm going to go to Northwestern, right?
Yeah.
And that's been Indiana. So that sort of reversal, right? It sort of cements Curt Cignetti as a modern miracle worker. It cements, Fernando Mendoza as an absolute college football legend for doing this in a year. Like, even if you want to look at recent extremely dominant teams like 2019 LSU or whatever, like Joe Burrow was there 2 years. He was decent in his first year and then was a monster there. I guess you could talk about Joe Brady in that context, however you want to look at it. But
sure.
It's just the time of this happening. This happened in the Big Ten. This is Indiana winning games against Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon and Penn State, like all of these major programs that have decades upon decades of goodwill built on the football field over Indiana. And Indiana just coming in and be like, that's old news. That's old news. Who cares?
I remember watching a game, and I don't even remember when it was. It might have been like 2009, something like that. I remember Andre Ware was on the call for ESPN.
Okay.
And every other word out of his mouth was about James Hardy, the big wide receiver they used to have, who was very good there. But you're right. It's all too often been a conversation about a player or two who's interesting on Indiana, not the team. We're not used to taking the team seriously,
right.
But here we are. Look, they've turned it around very quickly. We're at this moment now where I think we got to talk about the case for each team, Dan.
Yeah.
And we'll flip it over to the Miami side of the coin here, because I think there's more to talk about with respect to Miami. Build the case for Miami to win this game. What are the keys for them to win this game? How do you see it? If Miami ends up winning this, how do they do it?
They dictate the terms, right? It's the line play on offense, generating a bunch of 3rd and 3s and converting. Back-breaking 3rd downs like we saw against, I think CJ Daniels has been sort of the master of that recently, catching those tight passes in traffic on 3rd and 6 for 7.5 yards, knowing where the sticks are. That's a big deal on offense. I think riding the balance really nicely, not abandoning Mark Fletcher like they sort of did against Texas A&M in the wind until going back to Mark Fletcher. I think that was a big deal when they sort of went with what was working. So Miami underthinking this and going with what's working would be a great leg up in this game.
Let me add something to that.
Please.
I jotted down play big dumb Mario ball.
Okay.
Miami is bigger than Indiana on the lines.
Sure.
And we have seen Miami use this to great effect with how they've run the ball through the playoffs, and they dominated with their defensive line, obviously. We've talked a lot about that.
Yep.
Zoom out a little bit more, and I think what we have seen with the big dumb Mario ball is one of the big reasons why Miami's been able to turn 2 of their 3 playoff games into slugfests.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is essential that they play a slugfest, play bully ball against Indiana if they want to win this game. You do not want Indiana playing with momentum. That to me feels like when they're most dangerous and when they take your soul.
Oh, you don't think gifting pick sixes and punt blocks deep in your own territory?
I thought a lot about it. I don't think it's good.
Is that not the move against Indiana? I should have told that to Dan Lanning a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Send it to Danning. I'm going to call him that now.
Danning?
I like that.
Yeah.
If I'm Miami, I want to beat him up. I want to beat up Indiana. Nobody's really been able to stop Fernando Mendoza, so let's just do our best to keep him off the field.
Right.
Play the big dumb Mario ball.
Right, which is
play the bully ball, eat the clock, try to keep Fernando off the field as best you can.
To our earlier conversation, though, you can't come away with 0 on a 7-minute drive.
No.
Right, so that's the worry, that when you play slow, when you play deliberate, when you convert every 3rd and 3, and then suddenly you're on the Indiana 37 and it's 3rd and 9, and you don't convert, you're like, that's the killer. That's why it's such a high wire act to play this way, because if you fall behind once, it kills you.
Couldn't agree more. What else you got?
I got a bunch on Miami. I mean, the case for Miami is not that complicated. They beat Ohio State by more than Indiana did recently and pulled out a losable game there. They beat the SEC's Alpha, again, Ole Miss, in a losable game. They won a rock fight against Texas A&M in a losable game. To me, this looks like a losable game. When you're a dog by, 7.5, 8.5 points in this moment, it's a losable moment for Miami. Miami's not going to play out of itself, right? They're not going to be an air raid team all of a sudden. They're not going to alter their identity because it's going to be unexpected and we'll catch them by surprise. Miami's just not going to be that team.
There is a little bit of too cute a clock, though, in Shannon Dawson. I mean, we've seen that with
times
with the Malacat thing that they do, the Wildcat featuring Malachi Tony, and we've seen a couple trick plays like the flea flicker that I think we saw the last.
I mean,
we've seen some of these weird play calls from them at times, but beyond that, you're right. They're not really playing outside what they're good at. They're very much sticking to their script.
I can tell you this, and Malachi Tony can throw, but there has never been a time where I've watched a team line up for a direct snap to a running back or receiver and felt, ooh, the defense is in trouble now. The defense is in real trouble now.
It works better in the video game than it does in real life. I'll tell you that much.
And if there's one team that's likelier to run a direct snap in a crucial time, it's Miami.
Yes.
But you asked me what's the case for Miami, so I'm going to continue.
Please.
The ceiling of their collective line talent seems very high. And in a spot like this, that seems important. Carson Beck is experienced. This is not his first big game. This is not his first time against an excellent defense. Like, this moment is not too big for his experience and story thus far. How about you were talking about the connective tissue, by the way, of Fernando Mendoza and the city of Miami and his dad and Cristobal and everything like that. Corey Heatherman is from the Curt Cignetti tree.
Yep.
He was a James Madison defensive coordinator. I'm not saying that's a huge difference in this game. Corey Heatherman's was like Broyles' quality assistant this year. He's a very, very good defensive coach. And so maybe, just maybe, he remembers a couple of like the rhythms, the in-game rhythms of Curt Cignetti. I'm not saying he's diagnosing everything, but there's familiarity there.
I do think one of the keys for Miami is, can Heatherman dial up a way to stop the run without overcommitting?
Sure.
Let me give credit to Robbie Calland over at CBS now, who put this nugget out there a few days ago. When Indiana averages 4 or more yards per carry, the Hoosiers' average margin of victory is 42.8 points per game. That's 10 games so far this year. When they average less than 4 yards per carry, their average margin of victory is just 9 points. And that happened in 5 games. Now, Indiana won all those games, but it does speak a little bit, I think, to the formula on defense. Indiana runs a bunch of RPOs that are dependent on Fernando Mendoza to process what's going on, But the run game on the Indiana side, despite the fact that Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman and is the talk of the town, is probably going to be the first overall pick and all that.
Right.
The Indiana run game is an underrated aspect of this offense, and I think they need it in order for the whole thing to work.
Sure.
Miami needs to stop it. I think if they can stop it, if they can sort of make Indiana a little bit more one-dimensional than they're used to, that could have some positive ramifications for them, to say the least. But they cannot do so by overcommitting, because if they overcommit, that's when Elijah Surratt beats you one-on-one. That's when guys like Charlie Becker beat you over the top.
And they don't drop passes ever.
And they don't drop. Nobody ever drops a pass on this team.
No.
So you got to find a way to stop that run without the overcommitting thing. Otherwise, that's when Fernando Mendoza diagnoses very quickly the soft spot of the defense and he kills you. I don't know if Miami can do this, but I think if anybody can do this, it's Miami with the beef that they have up front. So whether that's a Heatherman thing and knowing any kind of tendency on the Cignetti side, whether it's just a Jimmy's and Joe's thing, where Miami feels like they've got the talent up front and in the front seven to break down the run without, stretching themselves too thin. I don't know if this is doable, but I've got that jotted down as a key, because I think if they can stop the run, more to my earlier point, if Indiana can't run, if it makes them a little bit more one-dimensional, I think we've got a different type of game on our hands than we've seen thus far in the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. Miami has the ability to make a quarterback, any quarterback, supremely uncomfortable. And we've seen mistakes from Fernando Mendoza. Not often, but if he doesn't see a clear path to escape pressure, he has thrown and made mistakes. He, fumbled against Oregon early on. That seemed like it may have changed the rhythm of that game. It very much did not. But it was a big moment where he fumbles it, gets the ball back on a big third down. It takes them out of a drive. He threw a pick six against Oregon that first time on the road. This is very much a road spot for Indiana against Miami. By the way, sidebar there, the ticket allotment is not the same. This is not a Miami home game, obviously. There's, ticket allotment for season ticket holders for each of these teams and fans of each of these teams. And a lot of it's like corporate interest. This is the college football playoff controlling the tickets in this game. So maybe Miami fans buy up everything that's available, and that's certainly, possible, but there's 800,000 or whatever living Indiana alumni. So I think it's the biggest alumni base in America. So that's something, but it's still like Miami has the ability to throw Fernando Mendoza's brain into chaos if he's scrambling without like an exit plan. So that's something there that I think you have to consider to be a really nice thing for Miami. I have down here, this year's Miami team has exclusively lost to inferior teams and played to the moment. They didn't lose any of their big games. SMU is not a big game. SMU is a decent team, but that was not a huge moment for Miami. They just blew the moment. And same goes for Louisville. So those were not huge games for Miami emotionally or just within the rhythm of the season. I have they're playing a de facto home game with no pressure because they're underdogs, right? You'd like to be playing from Miami's spot emotionally here than Indiana's spot.
Do you think that's true?
Yes. I think there's a certain amount of pressure because they're playing in this game at home, but they're not being looked at as like, well, this is all just a formality for Miami now. They're playing at home and they're favored.
I kind of think
it's more of a formality for Indiana.
I think playing at home ratchets up the pressure.
It could have been, yes.
The pressure that has been on this program for the last 25 years to get back to where they once were has been suffocating. And to the point that you made earlier, Cristobal has stayed away from it, artfully so.
Yeah.
They don't want to draw too close a comparison to any of those old teams because they know that there's a trap there.
Yeah.
Right. To constantly be compared to the past. I kind of think there's more pressure on Miami, even though they're a dog. But the fact that they got this one at home, the fact that they snuck in, the fact they've got this roster, many of whom will be drafted in the pros either now or later. There's just so much working for them. It feels like the window is open and that this is the time to really bring this whole thing full circle and win again. Indiana's playing with house money. Nobody thought Indiana would be here.
That's true.
So for me, I kind of come at this from the other side of it. Two other things that I'll bring up here, okay?
Please. I have a couple more as well for Miami, but continue.
While we're talking about the case for Miami,
yeah.
You mentioned Carson Beck, but I want to go back to that for a second. Carson Beck has 42 career starts. 42 career starts. This will be a supreme test of how he handles a moment like this. We've seen him on big stages before. He's not a stranger to this.
Right.
But I think for me, this is the chess match here. Because Indiana and their defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes, have been lauded for showing one thing pre-snap and then doing another after the snap.
Right.
The Indiana defense, I think, deserves a ton of credit for being able to pull this off because it speaks to the culture that they've built around communication and discipline and just putting new guys into a system and having everybody understand it right away. This is not a simple defense to understand. It's pretty complex in what they do, even if it doesn't look like that pre-snap all the time. Carson Beck cannot allow himself to be baited by that.
Yeah.
Because there will be moments in this game when they can't run and they can't throw the quick screen or the RPO. And his decision-making in those moments is almost certainly something that we're going to have to talk about on Monday night on the recap. So while I think there is a tug of war that I'll speak to a little bit later on in this episode, for me, the chess match is Carson Beck diagnosing this defense and moving the ball down the field, not doing anything stupid. We haven't seen him do anything stupid thus far in the playoffs.
Right.
He's been really good. Even if the stats aren't great, he's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to continue for one more game, and I think this will be the toughest test of that. And to the point, then, Miami just can't beat themselves.
Right.
You can't beat yourself. It's pretty well established at this point that Miami was a heavily penalized team. They averaged 7 penalties per game, 104th in the nation. The offensive line, in particular, one of the most penalized in the country.
Yep.
And I spoke about this before. You may recall how it was driving the fine folks over at State of the U crazy. Because we read that site all the time to get the inside track on what's going on with Miami football. They were going nuts about it after the Louisville loss. I remember reading it. So this is something that we have certainly been paying attention to throughout the course of the season for Miami, and they can't do it again. Indiana is just very good at what they do. And part of that is waiting for you to make a mistake.
Right.
And I know I've said this before. I'll say it again. Indiana is Scotty Scheffler. That's who they are. They're not the longest driver. They're not the best putter, but they're great with their irons and they never make bogey.
Right.
And so it's hard enough to beat any team, but it's really tough to beat a team that sort of waits around for you to screw up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't screw up. And
Yeah,
whether
they're
that's
quicksand.
Carson,
Yeah.
it's quick. Whether it's Carson Beck going up against the defense that shows a lot and then does something else, whether it's putting the ball on the ground, we saw Malachi Toney do that a little bit. Whatever it is, penalties, you cannot beat yourself against a team like Indiana, otherwise it's going to come back to bite you. So for me, the 4 keys that I jotted down: A, don't beat yourself; B, the Carson Beck chess match; C, stopping the run without overcommitting; and then going back to what I said at the very top, play big dumb Mario Cristobal football. Those are my 4 keys for
I think they're down their tight end, right? Elijah Lofton got hurt.
Right.
Which, I mean, not the biggest pass catcher, but has made some big catches for Miami this year. The other thing on the Carson Beck point is, yes, there is a lot of blame with the passing game and mistakes in their losses to SMU and Louisville. He's been really clean in terms of turnovers since that SMU game. He had the tipped pass in the red zone against Ole Miss, which, yes, is partially on him. He threw into a hand, which is not advisable, in my opinion.
No, don't do that.
But they also committed, I want to say, 0 penalties against Ohio State as well. So Miami has it in them to play extremely clean. We'll see. And, obviously it's dependent on how the referees are feeling and, what the rhythm of the game is. But they have it in them to play very clean, both from a passing perspective and a penalty perspective. So I think those are all right. I have down here also as well, the best of Miami is essentially ass-kicking to wear teams down. And this is game 16 for Indiana.
No.
At some point, he says, they can't keep getting away with this. At some point, a linebacker has to get tired mentally or physically. At some point, a corner has to. At some point, a left tackle has to. And Miami is the type of team, if they identify somebody who is weary, somebody who appears to be sluggish mentally or physically, that they can pound that dude into the ground, phrasing. So there is that Miami is one of the last teams, if not the last team you want to face if you are not feeling like your full self after 15 games. I don't know. That's my case for Miami. There's a lot of players that are going to be difference makers, that they've won in different ways. They were able to survive like both starting corners out for the second half of that game, and O.J. Frederick and Xavier Lucas, who will not be playing in the first half of this game after the targeting call against Ole Miss, right? That they're able to weather these things. They're able to count on youth. That there's just different things they've turned to sort of enhance their ability to win.
My case for Indiana revolves around 3 keys in particular.
Okay.
The very first one is they need to protect Fernando Mendoza.
Yep.
Not a great mystery, not a great secret. Got to protect him. Mendoza has been the highest graded quarterback this year under pressure. And on top of that, he is extremely difficult to confuse. That doesn't mean Miami shouldn't try, Dan.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like we get down the rabbit hole of these conversations all too often. And it's like, well, you can't confuse them. So now what are they going to do? Well, they're going to try.
Yeah.
Corey Heatherman's going to try because he has elite edge rushers that are going to test that Indiana line. I've also discussed how Indiana's line is equally as difficult to confuse, but again, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And I think Corey Heatherman is going to dial up some exotic blitzes, some complex pressure schemes to try and figure out a way to get to Mendoza. Part of it will be the stunts and the twists that we have seen from them all year. But I think the other part of it is just proving that Indiana can block them one-on-one. Because they got to like the Jimmies and Joes, again, that they have up front.
Definitely.
So let's see what Indiana could do against Reuben Bain Jr. Let's see what they can do against Akeem Mesidor. Let's put those guys in different positions. We've seen them do that throughout the course of the season in this playoff. Move those guys around. Put them next to each other. Have them loop around. Let's see what these guys can do trying to block Miami.
Agreed.
And I'm speaking about the Indiana line. They got to give them time. This, to me, I think is the big tug of war in this game. Indiana's line has passed every test so far this season. There's no reason to think that they can't handle Miami over the course of 60 minutes, but it would also be a malpractice to assume that it's no big deal. That, we just hand wave it. They've handled everybody, they can handle Miami. This will be a real challenge for them. And so I think there are some things that Indiana can learn from how Ole Miss handled the Miami front. The pass rush was way less of a factor in that game than I think we expected. But I think it goes without saying, I hope it goes without saying, that even though the line has been good and Fernando Mendoza has been great against pressure, this is still a different kind of puzzle to solve for that Indiana front, and they got to protect Fernando. They got to protect him. They got to get enough of a push up front to establish something of a ground game so they have the necessary balance here against this defense.
Yep.
Point number 1 for me.
Okay. Keep going.
Point number 2. Third downs. Over the last 2 games, Miami's been about 55% or so on third downs. A little bit under that. Last game, they were what? 11 of 19?
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great number. I think Miami is going to play slow and methodical, and as I mentioned earlier, big dumb Mario ball. And I know it's Mario, but in my neck of the woods, we call it Mario.
Yeah, Ty lives in a very specific sliver of America that pronounces everything just slightly off.
And says hoagie.
Wooder.
And in some cases, water.
Yeah. You know people who say use?
I do.
Yeah, Y-O-U-S-E, to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you related to any of these people?
I am not, thankfully.
Okay, that's good.
I think the only way Miami can play that style of football is if they're converting on third downs. So on the Indiana side, third down defense, it's not just on third down. It also extends to first and second down as well. Can you stop Miami from getting into third and manageable? Can you create more 3rd and 8s? That type of thing. Miami, to their credit, has been averaging 173 yards on the ground thus far through the playoffs. They have leaned on their offensive line to get that push. It is a matchup again to watch in the trenches. We can talk about the Indiana line and how it's going to handle the Miami front. I'm most curious, I think, how this matchup goes down. And that is, can the Indiana defensive line make enough hay against that Miami front to get these into third and longer situations? So it's not just a gimme for Miami. Stop them on third downs, and the big dumb Mario Cristobal football. Point 2.
Right.
And my third point is very specific to something we have seen Miami do over the last couple games, and I think this is going out to the Indiana defense. But it's a world, Dan, where all the rational people are trying to get away from their screens, trying to watch less of their screens.
Agreed.
I think the Miami offense has proven to us that the Indiana defense needs to watch all of the screens because Miami wants to get the ball to guys like Malachi Toney in space. And we have seen them have great success doing it this year with screens, with quick RPOs, stuff like that. He's shifty. He'll make you pay. He made Ole Miss pay.
Yeah.
So if you're not fundamentally sound, if you can't tackle him in open space, that's a problem. If he's able to make Indiana miss, that affects the whole third down defense thing too, right? It has further reaching ramifications than just one thing. So if Miami is getting him the ball in space, if he's making people miss, if they're getting chunk plays, that is a problem. That is a real issue that Indiana needs to do something about. They're a zone-heavy team, Indiana. Miami's going to try to overload one side of the zone. They're going to play a numbers game. They're going to try and get guys the ball in space. My hunch is that if you're Shannon Dawson, you like Malachi Toney's chances of making a guy miss. Indiana cannot let that happen. Maybe once or twice, but consistently you got to be able to get this guy on the ground. Otherwise, that screen game is something they're going to use to pick him to death.
Yep.
So for me, the 3 keys to victory: protect Fernando, third down defense, watch the screen, i.e. Malachi Toney on the screen.
By the way, when an instructive game, I think, just in terms of like what can get to Indiana is less the Oregon game that was on the road and just earlier on in the season. The Penn State game was interesting. Penn State was really good on third down, all things considered, that they had a backup quarterback and interim, everything like that, and couldn't really run.
They couldn't run, but what's really interesting about that, if you look at how Indiana played against Penn State, and I don't know if it was a respect thing.
Sure.
I don't know if it like an Ethan Grunkemeyer thing. I really don't know what they were thinking defensively, but compared to all of the other games that we have seen from the Indiana defense this year, they barely blitzed in that one.
Right.
They dialed up almost no pressure. The number that comes to mind is 20% of the time. And that number has been considerably higher against nearly every other opponent. So I don't know if it was the situational side of the game that caused them to take a little bit of a left turn, but it does seem as if, for whatever reason, they broke tendency in that game in State College, and they damn near lost, if not for an incredible catch by Omar Cooper Jr.
I have less in terms of bullet points for the case for Indiana. One, they're impervious to mistakes. That's a really good case for any team.
Yeah, that's it. Let's close the show out, right?
2, they just rocked Oregon and Alabama. They didn't beat them. They didn't comfortably win those games. They rocked them. Okay? Those are 2 really good teams, at least at their best. And in every important metric regard, they're superior. They do every little, medium, and big thing better, more consistently over time when you weigh a sample size, whether it's third down, whether it's red zone, whether it's first down, whether it's passing downs, whether it's rushing the passer. I don't have the exact pass rushing numbers in front of me, but if they're not superior, they're nearly identical. There is no statistical point, and this game is played on the field. It is not played on paper. Also, check out Game on Paper. They do a great job with advanced college football stats.
Just launched some new features, too,
yes,
by the way.
I saw that.
Let us know. Yeah, go and check out gameonpaper.com.
A lot of interesting ways to look at the sport.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
In terms of production and the whole Kurt Signetti production over projection or potential or whatever, Indiana produces. They get the job done more often on more downs in more situations on more stages in a more difficult conference this season than Miami was able to do. So just in terms of the path to get here, it's paved with more success more often when you look at Indiana's road. And that to me is meaningful. And so at a certain point, you have to pick a team. And I've sort of been doubting. I mean, I haven't been doubting Indiana. Indiana's been excellent all season long. I guess I doubted them maybe a little bit heading into the Illinois game early on. I saw them winning that game and covering, but you probably did.
I don't think I did.
I know you didn't.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I mean, I've been picking them since then, but
they're a murder machine. They are everything you want a national champion to look like. And maybe I'm overestimating them after Oregon and, thinking Oregon had a shot in that game. But I don't know. They just have the look of a team who can't lose this moment. I don't know. I mean, the case is not complicated. They're better coached. They execute better. They have a better quarterback, and they have more ways to win more often.
What's your final score prediction?
My final score in this one is 28-17 Indiana.
Okay.
I have them winning by 11. I have it being back and forth somewhat. I do have some kind of killer Miami mistake in this one, and the rhythm not being a blowout, not being last second. I have a reasonably comfortable Indiana win here.
I also have Indiana by 11.
Look at us.
Again, we don't
who'da thunk?
We don't run these past one another before we go live.
No.
But
Quick math on your part, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not great at math. I've got it 31-20.
Okay.
Indiana. So a little bit higher scoring. I guess it would hit the over. There's just too much to like, They're so buttoned up. This isn't to say they won't make mistakes or can't make mistakes, but Indiana is definitely less mistake prone. That's the understatement of the century as compared to Miami. Not that Miami is super mistake prone in terms of the backbreaking stuff, but it's a lot of the little stuff. A lot of the little stuff with penalties, some of the play calling, some of the decisions. It just doesn't feel like that's as much of a risk on the Indiana side.
Yep.
So Indiana favored by 8.5 again at time of recording. I guess we're both going
over
with the Hoosiers. Yeah. 31-20 is my final.
28-17. I think low scoring first quarter, if any scoring, like a 3-0 first quarter as teams get a feel for the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately I think, one of the things that I guess we didn't fully mention, but you were talking about run defense in this one. Iowa was able to run some on Indiana this year. Oregon was able to run some in that first matchup. Ohio State, I want to say, was able to run a little bit. I know that was a big Jeremiah Smith game against Indiana. But if you are going to, and this again, something you've mentioned, if you are going to dictate a little bit in this game against Indiana, it seems like it has to be on the ground. It just does not seem like we're going to walk away from this game. We're like, well, that was a Carson Beck game. Who'd have thunk? So that's a place where Miami can make some hay. But yeah, I have, ultimately it's a combination of quarterback and lines, defense and coach. I think Indiana's just, they measure up a little bit better.
I tend to agree. I'd love to hear from our Verballerhood on this one. As you know, you can go out to verballers.com to help support the team. You can, of course, look us up on any of our social platforms. You can always email solidverbal@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts. For what it's worth, I did post a poll out on our Solid Verbal YouTube channel asking people which side of the bet they would take. Indiana minus 7.5 at the time. This was a few days ago. Or Miami plus 7.5. 77% of the respondents, and we got a good number of people who responded, over 1,800. 77% went Indiana minus the number.
What are the betting numbers? I don't know if you pulled those. Like where are the majority of the bets? Where's the majority of the money? I don't know if you have that on any of those wagering sites.
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick. My hunch is that there is a lot of steam on Indiana because the opening number was 7.5 in favor of the Hoosiers. The fact that has now gone up a little bit tells me that we're probably seeing a little bit of a move towards, the Indiana Hoosiers. Right now, 89% of the money and 80% of the bets are on Indiana.
Hoosiers. Okay.
So if you are of the mind that you want to fade the public, and it's not always the worst strategy, Miami plus 8.5 could be interesting. Maybe that number jumps up a little bit to 9. I think in some places it's already at 9 if betting is your thing.
Did you weigh the fact that Miami has its own self-sustaining energy source in Michael Irvin on their sideline?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because one of the other questions that I jotted down here that I was going to ask as a bit of a gag to close out the show.
Yeah.
And maybe this is my moment. But on our bowl bingo card, again, 30 props. It's free to play. All you got to do is pick 6. I interject a couple of my own in there.
Of course.
To keep things interesting. And one that I added was Michael Irvin will be flagged for some kind of sideline warning.
Whoa, I like that.
So we can't rule it out, and I don't think it'll happen.
Deep cut.
But seeing him sort of convulse on the sidelines throughout the course of this playoff run,
yeah,
there's at least a chance that Michael Irvin could somehow be involved in a sideline fracas and be flagged for a sideline violation.
Right. Okay. I like that.
And, at time of recording, I don't believe ESPN has released yet what their full broadcast strategy is going to be. So obviously they're going to cover the game. It'll be Fowler and Herbie on the call. But typically they have a bunch of altcasts. So I think we saw they're going to be doing a coach's room again.
Saw that. Have they announced who's in it?
I haven't seen who's going to be in it. They'll probably do the sideline thing with the McAfee show like they've been doing for the other games. Skycast, they'll have the command center, the one where they've got all the stats up on ESPN News or something. That's my assumption. I haven't seen official announcements on that yet, but my hunch is that they're going to have a whole host of those. I stand by what I said a couple weeks ago. We need the Irvin cast. We need the Irvin cast. Just show them. Show them, put them on a split screen with what's going on in the game. That would be high entertainment.
Can you stream live from like the Meta glasses, the Facebook glasses? Can he wear those?
Perfect. That'd be perfect. Absolutely perfect.
That'd be great. You saw that the halftime show is 7th Floor Crew reuniting? It's not.
The halftime show, I did look it up. It's the marching bands.
That's it?
Pitbull is going to be performing in the lead up to the game, Mr. 305.
Oh, well, obviously.
Got to perform.
Do you think he's going to like bring back the Dr. Pepper? Like, is that going to be part of his set list?
I wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't hate that.
Let's have a real good time. That's that song, right? That's the Dr. Pepper song. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other like throwaway. There's going to be a lot of cutaways to former Miami players on the sideline. We'll probably get at least one shot of Mark Cuban, of Cubes, in a suite in this one. Are there other Indiana luminaries that
Joe
are going to...
Buck? I don't know if Joe Buck will be there, but Joe Buck's a Indiana luminary.
Yeah, that's true. There's what's his name has his own suite, right? So he can smoke at the Indiana games. John Mellencamp.
Oh, John Mellencamp.
John Mellencamp. You know about this, right? He has his own suite on the roof so he can smoke during Indiana games.
Yeah.
So you got John Mellencamp. I'm trying to think of other Indiana or Indiana sports luminaries that would be there. I don't know. But yeah, we'll have a good amount of Miami cutaways. By the way, here's the other thing. I probably should have mentioned this earlier. Kind of crazy that this is the retirement year of former Indiana head coach Lee Corso from college football, and Indiana's in the championship game.
It is a little weird, isn't it?
He's going to be in an Indiana sweater there. 100%.
There's
going to be and our old friend,
the
legendary Lee Corso, Sunshine Scooter.
It would be cool if they brought him back as the guest picker.
That would be incredible.
That would be pretty cool.
I hope he's in good shape. I hope everything's cool. Yeah.
But that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see luminary cutaways. That's what I'm saying.
Why don't we leave it there? We're both on Indiana. Let us know who you are picking anywhere you can. Email, social media, comments as you're watching this video or listening to this out on Spotify or any of the apps that allow it. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
Let us know where we're right. Let us know where we're wrong.
They always do, Ty. They always let us know where we're wrong.
They need no prompting.
Yeah.
They're always letting us know where we're right and wrong, especially the Indiana people this year.
Yeah.
Especially the Indiana people this year.
They're shooting out of the ground, Ty. You never saw them before. You always see a stray.
Like those 78-year locusts that just sort of emerge.
Yes. What are they? The what's it called, Ty? What? Not
Cicadas?
locusts, the cicadas, right? The cicadas is what I called them during the season. But I don't know if you've ever seen the clip of who was the guy that did Gangnam Style? Him like shooting out of the floor. They just shoot out of nowhere. These Indiana fans. I honestly
mentions, man.
thrilled for him. Think about the life of like a true blue Indiana football fan. Like if you go back and look at like any Indiana football preview that we've done that anybody's done, there's always like one guy be like, I don't know if we could break right away, we go 4-8. And I don't know. It's pretty crazy, and I'm pretty happy for everybody involved in this one, fan wise.
Indiana against Miami. We got one big one left on Monday night, January 19th, kicking off from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Dan and I will be back with you guys right after the game. We'll do it live on YouTube. We'll also put it out here on the audio feed.
Are we doing a watch along? Have we even discussed that?
I don't think we discussed it. I'd be open to it if you want to.
I'm open to it. Sure.
Let us know what you guys think. Social media, email, out on Patreon, what have you. If it's something you want, leave us a comment. We'll see if it's something we can put together. We got one big one left, everybody.
Can't wait.
National Championship. We'll catch you all on Monday night. In the meantime, for that guy, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, from myself, Ty Hildenbrand, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the game, and until next time, stay solid.
Peace.